So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our cinnamon syrup. And I will say this is probably optional, but I thought it would be really fun to have you guys do a little flavored syrup just to drizzle on top of your fruit salad. Because what's left you could also use in like tea or put it on like oatmeal or wherever you use honey and that sort of thing. So we've got our glass bowl because we're going to put this in the microwave. So there's that. And then you guys should all have a little packet of sugar, which good for you, I pre-measured for you. So you can just dump your sugar into your microwave safe bowl. You might use a mug, whatever you can put in the microwave. You know, glass is always best. You could even use something like this, like a glass measuring cup or a mug, whatever. So we're going to use a 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup of the sugar, and that's what you had in your bags. So I'm going to put my sugar in my bowl. And then we're going to add to that 1/4 cup of water, which I have in this little thing. But you guys can also just use your dry measuring cup like this if you want, whatever's easiest. So you're going to mix your sugar and your water together in your bowl. And then I'm going to take just a little spoon and give it just a little stir to kind of help it along initially. All right, and then let's put this in the microwave for about a minute. And luckily mine is right here. So what we want to do is get that water really nice and hot, and it might be steaming, which is good because we want the hot water to help dissolve the sugar. And then once that's done, we're going to add our cinnamon stick. So while you're waiting for the water to heat up, you can find your cinnamon stick, which was in the bag, I think with the pistachios and some of that stuff. If you want, you can even try breaking your cinnamon stick apart in half, but they're super hard. So if you try that, I almost, oh, there, I got mine broken apart. This is just going to add a little more flavor because, you know, when you have smaller pieces, oh, and I even broke it the other way too, it's going to infuse your syrup with that flavor a little bit more. So I think this is called canela in Spanish. Is that right? Help me out, somebody.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, good. So the cinnamon is actually the bark from a tree. So, and this is a spice. So just to give you kind of a little rundown on herbs and spices, spices are the bark or the seeds from a plant, and the herbs come from the leaves and sometimes the stems. So today we're working with a spice, which is the bark from a tree, and that's our cinnamon. Okay, so here's my steaming bowl of water. So steam is good. I'm gonna now put your cinnamon pieces into your hot water, and we're just going to stir this around a little bit, help the sugar dissolving process a tad, and then I'm just going to set this aside. And you know what helps this too is to put something like a lid or a plate on top of it. It's almost like you're making tea. So I have a like random lid for one of my pans. I'm going to put that on there, and I'm just going to set this over here, and we're going to let that steep for a while we cut up our fruit. Okay. Everybody good? Everybody with me? I see some thumbs up or some whatevers out there. Okay, good. Next thing, we're going to cut up our persimmon. So the persimmons look like this. They kind of look like a squished tomato that is orange. Kind of a funny looking thing, right? So we're going to do this as safely as possible. And I want you guys to find your paring knife, which is a small knife, looks like this. This might be a good activity for the grown-up or the older sibling if you guys have somebody nearby. And step one is we're going to cut just the top leafy part out. It's called coring. So we're going to kind of go up and down like this. I'm going to try to kind of hold it, but you keep it on your board. So keep it on your board, and we're going to hold it down, and we're just going to go very carefully around the top. We're just cutting out the little leafy part. Okay, I'll do it, and then you guys can do it. All right, so there's that came out. So now I should have kind of this funny little crater in the top of my persimmon. So I'm going to put the top leafy part into my scrap bowl, which is over there. You should have a little place for your scraps or compost if you guys have gardens or composting or whatever. Okay, once that's off, now we're going to do another cut. And we're just going to go straight through from top to bottom. So now we have two halves that look like this. Oh, I'm sorry. We forgot to peel it. That's okay. We can still peel it. This will work. So now with your peeler, we're going to go a little bit from top to bottom here. You're going to hold it down on your cutting board, and we're just going to run your peeler around it as best you can. These do not have to be peeled. You can totally eat the peeling, but I find that sometimes the peels are a little bit tough. Another way you can hold this, if you're comfortable, is holding it like this, and then kind of using your thumb to scoot the peeler along like that. Okay, but I think it's going to be easier to just go down like this. You're going to kind of grab it. You could even set it flat like this way on the board while you kind of do your peeling. That might work better, actually. I was kind of trying to do this would be the most stable for you guys. So yeah, let's flip them down so that the flat side is on the board. And we're just going to work around it with our peeler to get most of the peeling off. And if there's a little bit left on there, don't worry. These tend to be pretty slippery, so just be careful. You don't want to cut yourself with your peeler. Okay. I have this little scraper tool that I like to use to clean up all my little peelings and little scraps on the board. Okay, so here's my first half. And you know what? While you guys are finishing up, I'm going to show you what I meant to do, which would make this even easier the next time you want to do it, because you probably, maybe you guys got some extra persimmons in there. So the way I intended to do it, I'll just kind of demo this, is after I get my top leafy part off, then we're going to peel it like this, so it's all still together. And after you go about halfway down the persimmon around this way, then we're going to flip it over so it's upside down, and then we'll peel it down this way. It's just I was thinking that'd be an easy way for the kids to do it so that you're not trying to hold something slippery. But it seems like, you know, everybody's probably doing okay. All right, let me go back to my other halves. All right, so I have my one half pretty much ready to go there. I'm now going to peel my other half. Some of you guys might be done already with your peeling. I'm now going to catch up a little bit here. Again, be careful, they're a little slippery. Okay, so we should have two halves of peeled persimmon. By the way, these persimmons came from a place called Vacaville Persimmon Farm, and they are quite reasonably priced, to be honest with you, given what these things cost in grocery stores. And the farm is, I think it's just somebody with a house and a whole bunch of persimmon trees, but they are operating as Vacaville Persimmon Farm, and they're located, they're east of Vacaville. They have a Facebook page, so if you want to check them out, you can just put in Vacaville Persimmon Farm. Okay, so now we're going to cut our persimmon into our slices. Let me make sure I'm not skipping something, because I kind of walked through this step by step. Yep, okay. So our persimmons are now flat side down, very stable, and we're just going to make slices. So we're just going to go from top to bottom through our persimmon halves. And once you start to get to the edge of this slice, we're going to flip it again so that it is even more stable. I think I'm going to scoot this up so you guys can see. Move this up a little bit. Might be a little better. Okay. So here I'm slicing. So I should have some slices now that kind of look like this. You guys can see here. Okay. Now it's up to you. If you want to make these even smaller, you can. So on a couple of my big pieces, I might just make some other cuts just so I have kind of some chunks here. Okay, now I want you guys to find your fruit salad bowl. So mine is going to be this one, a little bit bigger. This is where we're going to put all of our finished fruit. This is the finished fruit bowl that I had in the recipe. All right, we're going to do the same thing with our other half, our other persimmon half. So I'm going to go down, top to bottom, and just make slices. And then when I start to get close to the edge, I'm going to scoot those away, and I'm going to flip that down. And we're going to do a few more cuts. And I'm going to find my big ones. I'm going to just cut those in half. Okay. So you guys should have now some cut up persimmon. Kind of looks like that. All right, how's everybody doing? Are we good? Everybody with me? Yep, I see some thumbs up from some kids. Okay, awesome. All right, next is something a little bit easier. We're going to find our mandarins, which are like these little cutie oranges. They're called cuties in the store, but really they're mandarins. There's lots of different kinds of mandarins. These came from a farm called Terra Firma that's up by Winters, and I got these through something called my CSA box, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And what it means is I pay the farm some money, and every week I get a box. Oh my gosh, I actually have one right here. My box is big. I get this box full of fruit and vegetables every week. I go pick it up. So that's what a CSA box is, in case anybody's wondering. I'm gonna wash my hands again. So back to our cutie mandarins here. So these you guys have probably peeled before. We're just gonna kind of dig your thumbnail into the top and until it releases, and we're just gonna peel these off. So this is something should be pretty easy for younger kids, should be easy for the older kids too. So we're just gonna peel these cuties, and then we're going to separate what's called the segments. And I have two boys, ages 7 and 11, and they like to sit here and pick off all of the white pith that's around here. So that's kind of a waste of time in my opinion, but if you want to do that, you can. But now once I have my peeling off, I'm just gonna pull apart these little tiny segments. And once they're pulled apart, into my finished fruit bowl they go. So you guys should have 2 cuties per kid. So that's what we're gonna do here. All right, my first one's in. I'm gonna do my second one. So there's a lot of different varieties of mandarins. I had no idea how many different kinds of citrus and mandarins there were until I moved to California. I lived in Chicago for 20 years, and before that, I grew up in Nebraska. And believe me, there are no orange trees and no citrus in Nebraska. So I really love it out here with all the food that grows year round. Okay, so I'm on my second cutie here, taking my little sections apart. This is something that is probably easier when you have little fingers like you guys. Okay. All right, that's the mandarin part. How's everybody doing there? Do we need a little bit of the time yet on the mandarin? Thumbs up. Good. Okay. So in my finished fruit bowl, I've got 2 things, the mandarin and the persimmon. All right. Next is kind of a fun one, the pomegranates. Your pomegranates might be a bunch of crazy different colors and sizes and shapes. I was telling Allison before we got on this call that my friend down the road who has a pomegranate tree dropped off a bag for me yesterday, just out of the blue. So I ended up with about a dozen pomegranates now in my house. So they look kind of funky, right? You've got this little flowery thing on the, actually it's the bottom. It looks like it might be the stem, but it's like the bottom. And so this one still has the stem on. So they grow on the tree like this. And so when they get picked, you know, this is what you have. So this little flowery thing down here, that's actually the bottom of it, but some people might think it's the stem. Okay, so now you're gonna need probably a bigger knife, if you have it, to start this process. And you're also going to need, if you are choosing to do this step, your big giant bowl of water. And I'll explain what that's gonna be for in a minute, but this is gonna help us to get the seeds away from the white membranes that are inside. So step 1 on the pomegranate, we're gonna cut off, you know, I would say just pick an end. I would say let's cut off the bottom. Cut off the end that has the flowery bit. I'm going to need to cut off both ends of this one because it has the stem on it. Okay, and these are very hard, so I recommend you find a grown-up to do that. And these are messy, so we're going to start getting kind of messy all over our board right now. Okay, so once I've cut off my ends, I'm going to put flat side down so that it's nice and stable. And then you take your big knife and you can either cut straight through it, top to bottom, or you can just kind of score it around the peeling. But I think what's going to be easiest is we just cut right through. It's going to be a little messy, but go for it. And then this is what's on the inside. So now we've exposed all of our pomegranate seeds. Okay. All right, here comes the big bowl of water. So what happens is you're going to work kind of underwater in your bowl to separate the seeds from the peeling and the white part. So all you do is you just kind of start breaking it apart. There's little sections of this that'll just start kind of coming apart and falling apart. And if I do this in the water, what happens is that the seeds will sink to the bottom and the white parts will float, and that'll make it easier to get everything separated apart and use the pieces and parts that you want. So I'm just kind of using my thumb to kind of scrape them off a little bit like this, and I'm doing it in the water. And so my seeds are kind of falling to the bottom. And I've got this piece already kind of taken apart. So there's no more seeds on here. I'm gonna put that into my scrap bowl. And you don't have to do the whole pomegranate. We just need a couple tablespoons of seeds. You guys can eat the rest for a little snack later if you want. So just do another little section here. Okay, that looks good. Another little seed there. Sometimes they hide. They hide inside the white membranes. And you know, you might hear people talk about pomegranate arils. The aril is actually this, it's the red juicy part that's around the seed. So the seed is actually inside this part here with the aril. So it's kind of confusing. I mean, I tend to just call the whole thing the seed, but technically the aril is the juicy part, and then the seed is actually on the inside of that juicy part. So that's kind of all about our pomegranates here. The farm that I got the pomegranates from for you guys is called Lockwood Acres, and they are west of Vacaville. Farmer Ben Lyons is the guy over there. So he grew those pomegranates that you have. And it sounds like they were just loaded, so he had to get them all off the trees. So this is good timing for this class. Okay, I'm going to set aside, I've got enough here. As long as you guys have a couple spoonfuls worth of pomegranate seeds, that's all good. So now I'm just going to kind of strain these out. I've got a strainer over here, or you can just dig in there with your hands and fish them out. That works too. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump this in my sink. Okay. All right, I'm going to grab a couple handfuls. So once you have your seeds kind of collected and ready to go, they can go into your finished fruit bowl along with your orange fruits. And at this point, you might want to get out your little washcloth and wipe down your board and wipe down your knife and get the sticky stuff off your hands. So feel free to do a little cleanup here. And then we'll move on to one of our last ingredients. Let's throw a little more pomegranate in there. Okay. All right, everybody ready to move on? You guys should have some pomegranate seeds. Your bowl is now looking kind of festive and more holiday-like. This is a good one for holiday time coming up. Okay, next we have pistachios. So I gave you guys about 10 to 12 pistachios. Some of them might be kind of closed up. Others might have the shells open farther. So the deal with these is that we just want to break them apart. Keep my little bowl here. We just want to pull the shells apart with I usually use my thumb and kind of separate them. And the shell, the hard shell, is going to go into our little scrap bowl. And then you can put the kernel into another bowl or just leave it on your cutting board, depending on how much space you have. So that's all we're doing with those for right now. We're just going to separate the hard shells from the kernel, which is the actual nut part that we eat. And you'll see that there's a little bit of another shell. It's like a little dark papery kind of shell on there. You can take that off if you want, but if you end up eating it, that's fine too. It's just kind of part of the nut. So we're going to do something kind of fun now with our kernels. We're going to take them out on our cutting board, and we're just going to gently crush them. So what you can use is, if you still have your measuring cup from earlier, you could use this. You could use a mug. You could use something like this. I'm going to use my little measuring cup here. You could also probably use like a spoon, although I think something flat would be best. So if you have something like a glass, that would work too, actually. Let me grab, it's just like a drinking glass, a small one like this, because it has a flat bottom. So all we're going to do is just put it on top of our pistachio kernel and just kind of gently push until we hear a little crunch. And we're just kind of smashing these up a little bit into small pieces. And then we're going to put that into our finished fruit bowl. So, you don't have to really whack it too hard because they're kind of tender. They'll fall apart. So I'm going to try it with the cup here. It's kind of fun with the glass cup because then you can look through the glass and see what's going on underneath it. So that's what we're going to do, is just kind of mash these a little bit, just crush them after you crush it. And then once you have these crushed, you can add them to your fruit bowl. I'm going to use my scraper. Okay. So I'm going to let you guys kind of do your crushing routine with whatever you have available. And just let me know when you're done. And as you're crushing, this is where the little dark brown papery bit kind of comes off. So if you want to pull that out and put that in your scrap bowl, you can, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. All right. So when you guys are done with the pistachios, you should have something that looks like this in your bowl. We've got our persimmons, our mandarins, our pomegranate seeds, and our pistachios. So now you're going to set your finished fruit bowl aside, and we're going to go back to our bowl that had the syrup in it with the cinnamon, and we're going to check it. So my sugar is not quite dissolved, so I'm just stirring because I think it just needs a little bit more stirring. If you have a lot of sugar that's not yet dissolved, you could throw it back into your microwave for a little bit. But one thing that you maybe are noticing is that sometimes it gets a little thicker. And just for fun, if you guys have a little spoon, or you can just dip your finger in, we're going to dip it in and taste and see if you guys can taste some cinnamon. It should taste kind of like a cinnamon roll almost. Sweet and cinnamony at the same time. Okay, so you can mix it around until your sugar dissolves. I think mine's finally almost there. And it's getting a little thicker. And then if you have you can either use a small teaspoon, or if you have your tablespoon measuring spoon, you can use this. So I'm just gonna spoon out about maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of the syrup. And I'm gonna drizzle that into my finished fruit. So here's my fruit. I'm gonna do 2, because why not? Make it nice and sweet. Okay, and then you have a bunch of this left for whatever else you want to do with it. It makes a little more than what you need. All right, and so now I'm just going to mix this around. So you might, after you've added your syrup, we're just going to get a bigger spoon and kind of stir this around to mix things. And then we are done. That is your fruit salad, but it should look very colorful, kind of festive in here. And you know what's a fun thing to do? for serving it is you could use like a glass cup like this and spoon it in, and it's almost like you're making like a parfait or something. You could get super fancy and put it in like a, you know, a wine glass or just, you know, any kind of clear cup or clear bowl. And then you're ready to eat it. So it looks nice and pretty when you put it into something like this. My glass has little dimples on it, so it's a little bit funky and hard to see, but I'm gonna stick it back into the bowl. Okay, so there it is. Now, when you are all done, you wanna make sure to keep this in the refrigerator because you have cut fruit parts in here. You know, when we have our whole fruit like this, or, you know, our cuties, even the persimmons, all of these fruits, before you cut them, can be kept just out on the countertop or in the refrigerator. But once you cut into it, then that's when it starts to break down. And so you want to keep it safe and you want to keep it in the fridge. So I would say this could probably keep for at least 5 days in your refrigerator. What will start to happen is that the persimmons will actually start to absorb some of the syrup and they might turn a little bit darker in color. They'll just be a darker orange, but they're still totally safe to eat. So why don't you guys take a bite? Try it. Tell me what you think. You're gonna hear me crunching now. So the pomegranate seeds are super crunchy. And of course the nuts are crunchy too. And if you guys have extra fruit, just try it out on its own. And you might find something that you've never tried before that you like. And then you'll know what they are and you can enjoy it.